is Peter Barkman. I'm the CEO of a company called PALMU, service design thinking based consultancy from Finland. And what we've planned for today is a bit of a symphony of service design and design thinking topics. Finns, as Singaporeans, are extremely pragmatic. We try to actually get some tangible stuff done very fast. We're a small nation, like you are, and we have fairly scarce resources, so that's important. The symphony that we have orchestrated for today is also, I feel, fairly pragmatic. We will start by giving you 4 flash presentations, 10 to 15 minutes, about cases that we have done, which will then also, in the latter part of this workshop, be reflected in the different stations that we have set up for the gallery walk. Station A is going to be run by Saku. Can you wave your hand? Saku there, and we'll get back to the logistics when we've done with the presentations. Then Reima will be at Station B. Nav, where's Nav? Nav, there, great. Nav will be at Station C, and then Marcus will be here at Station D. And you might notice that you are sitting by a table with a letter on it, so from that you will know which group in the gallery walk you will belong to. And as said, if you're sitting with the back to the table, just check behind you and you'll see that. But perhaps if I promised pragmatism, I'll have to practice it, and we'll go straight into the cases. I'm going to speak a few words about a case called Pohjola Sairaala. Pohjola means Nordic and Sairaala means hospital. Easy Finnish words. And it's an interesting case because it's a hospital concept that was created from scratch, a greenfield basically. This is a picture of their second hospital. There's 3 of them right now in the 3 largest cities of Finland, and a 4th is under construction, which is in fact this one. This is an old factory refurbished in the city of Tampere. Really cool location actually, and mills and the river running through, or actually a rapid running through the city of Tampere. But more importantly, what made the Pohjola hospital case happen was that Mr. Harri Aho, who was the CEO and basically the creator of the concept, has worked basically his entire career in healthcare. And already perhaps 15 years ago, the idea and thought of this sort of approach, which I'll soon share in more detail, had been simmering in his head. Partially from the reason, for example, that private sector healthcare operators, we have a slightly different system than you do, where of course, as they were private companies, very much focused on profitability and EBIT, which is right if you happen to be a CEO of a limited liability company, that's your task. But it's not perhaps optimal for the patient and from the patient's point of view. And Mr. Harri Aho had been thinking about this dilemma and thinking who would be the perfect partner, who has the biggest problem in this context that needs to be changed or gives an opportunity for a big change. And his conclusion was that it could be done in the private sector side together with an insurance company. Because, for example, up to 70% of the insurance cost comes from inefficient treatment chains in Finland. The organizations are a bit siloed, and it takes a long time to move from one place to the other. Papers move slowly, you go back and forth in the process, and it just takes a lot of time for people, for example, after an injury in a car accident, to get back to work. So this was sort of the basic idea behind why the entire thing started. We were involved at some point with Mr. Aho and started thinking about what the solutions and what the concept could be. And there were some basic dilemmas that had been identified earlier. As I mentioned, the treatment chain is long, slow, siloed, bouncing people around, not optimal. People, for this reason, are slow to return to work, in fact. And of course, that leads to low customer satisfaction, which is of course extremely important, especially when you talk about the private side, but of course also on the public sector. So the sort of opportunity lying behind all of this was then to try to redefine the treatment chain to create a true competitive advantage, because in this case, the profit and loss statement that you are following is not just the hospitals, but the entire insurance groups. The challenge often in these cases is that as you are siloed, it's different to break these traditions, and especially in industries like healthcare or, for example, the airline industry, where there's no room for error. Especially on the clinical side, of course, people are extremely wary of the changing processes. Same on the airline side. It's difficult to change any process there because, you make a mistake and 300 people drop down from the sky. It's a problem. So this had to be rethought. How do you get around this challenge of silos? What should you do? And one of the key learnings that we've had from service design and actually implementing things, not just coming up with great ideas that sound fun, which is a common problem, I think. Exciting new ideas that are not implementable, is to create outcome-based KPIs. What is it that you follow? Of course, the clinical KPIs are fairly obvious. People need to get healthy fast. But what else can you do? Out of this sort of dialogue and discourse, the guiding principles that were sort of condensed out of all of this thinking was that in this new concept that we're creating, the customer or the patient must never move backwards in the process. Always just forward, going forward. Obviously, try to maximize the treatment results and optimize the use of very expensive assets. I think the two latter bullets are fairly obvious and practiced basically everywhere with varying degrees of success, of course, but still. But in the attempt to maximize the treatment result, the Portugal case actually was thinking more about how do you get people actively again participating in working life. For example, can you place people back to work in some other tasks that they haven't been doing before? Say a bus driver can drive his bus if his legs in a cast, but perhaps he can do something else. So this was also a fairly broad-based thinking. What can we do? And when you have these guiding principles and assumptions in place, then you can start thinking about hypotheses. And this is a very, very important point when you talk about service design and design thinking based concept creation, that you need to have ideas that you concretize somehow because they are tools for discussion. They should not be seen as a final solution. And this is also a challenge, I think, that when you make a very concrete looking prototype, which can be either a drawing or actually a functioning, say, reception desk, not to speak of when you go into more closer to the treatment activities in this case, they seem ready, and it's sometimes difficult to let go. People fall in love with the hypothesis, but it's important to remember that in the beginning of a process, they should just be tools for discussion, so that you can have something that is fairly concrete that you can start disagreeing around or agreeing around. So don't fall in love with the hypothesis ideas. Well, how do you then get to these hypotheses? Of course, we have a lot of tacit knowledge in our heads, and we talk to each other, and there's a lot of insight and knowledge already, so that obviously should come into play. But furthermore, it's very important to understand who your patients and customers are. And this is not a macro-sized quantitative approach. This is a qualitative approach. And it's surprising how little at the end, research end, can be to get to these types of profiles. If you know your target group more or less, and you have a set of good hypotheses, I can from experience say that it takes perhaps 6 or 7 interviews, deep interviews, contextual interviews with people to start finding out the real challenges. Then you iterate perhaps your hypotheses, and the next 5 or 6 deep interviews lead, in fact, to this. And what we found over the years, and we've been doing this for quite a while, and hundreds of similar cases, that not once, when we've done the quantitative study to back this up, has the profiles changed significantly. They've been fine-tuned and they become deeper, but they do not change. So the learning here is that actually with quite a small n, if you know what you're doing in the contextual interview and your research process, you get to the challenges fairly fast. But you have to be open, and you shouldn't perhaps be listening to what people are saying, but what they're not saying, and what is between the lines, and then this happens. The documentation of these processes then goes deeper. I won't go into detail, but just to show you that it's not just this four-field, but you have to, of course, analyze the different profiles a little bit, and then you start really getting to grips with these. And they're very important tools when you start creating the concept. Now, of course, a lot of organizations already do customer research, and it's sort of like a misnomer already. Yeah, we know our customers, but what is it used for? In big organizations especially, organizations tend to be silent, and there's great research, and then sort of the insight disappears for different reasons. So, to take the next step is actually to identify what the very pragmatic success factors are. And then from those you need to derive the KPIs. And the case of Pohjola-Sairaala, the KPIs that were followed closely was customer satisfaction in the form of Net Promoter Score, which I think is fairly familiar to you. Entry into the process and back to work time. And then, of course, payback of the hospital investment. Once you have the KPIs and you have the hypothesis and you have profiled your customers, you can start analyzing different things. And this is actually the pragmatic part of design thinking. What do you actually do with all this hyperbole of understanding people in the context? And it gets a bit fluffy sometimes. Well, it's very pragmatic, actually. If we take, for example, the case of the VIP, the patient, and you are planning perhaps to create a digital self-service treatment and assessment tool, and you know that 80% of your patient or customer base is representing this profile. Does not like, likes perhaps a little, does not like. Conclusion, don't do it. Forget it. And there's a lot of stuff going on in the world right now where we waste money. In 2016, 259,000 different healthcare and related applications were launched in the world. 259,000. And if I were to make a gallop right now here, I bet that we wouldn't be using more than 5 different ones here. So probably there's a lot of spare capital in the world right now. You can also, of course, then analyze the hospital journey or the patient journey, and when you know that, for example, this profile is keen on self-assessment, you can start thinking about tools around that very important touch point for her. Or, and then finally, extremely important, because everything needs to be financially viable as well. And this is something that we will have also in Station D to show you in more detail. You need to simulate. You need to understand cause and effect relations that somehow affect other. You need to understand undesired outcomes and desired outcomes, and then, of course, calculate the P&L and the financial viability all the time. And this is true, of course, for both private and public sector. Well, Pohjola Hospital, what did this all lead to? Our clients recommend us, easy to say, asiakkaamme suosittelevat meitä. Should we say go together? No, you don't have to. You don't have to. As an NPS score, which is outlandishly good. But this is still sort of like, okay, so what, they like us? Is it a good proposition? Well, yes, it is. If the NPS is high, it correlates directly to profitability and growth, in fact. And by taking this approach, Pohjola Hospital was able to cut down the treatment chain down to 50%. And I think this is the most important KPI. Payback of the first hospital was in less than 3 years. And that's, I think, significant information. Key learnings. Understand for real, don't guess. Don't rely just on specialists sitting in a meeting room trying to come up with new ideas and services. Use prototypes to understand the root causes for behavior. Don't create services that require teaching, because if they require teaching, they're too complicated and they won't work. Measure everything you do and try to be holistic. Try to understand the entire situation of the patient. This is a problem, I think, in Finland at least. The sort of preventive care to accidents, illnesses, and then back to health again is lacking. That's a topic that I could spend another half hour on, but let's not do that because I promised you flash presentations. Lastly, I want to leave you with this image, because this is an intangible benefit from doing what I just showed you. The true deep dive into the client's or patient's world, backed up with solid methodologies so that you can actually credibly claim something to be sort of as true as it can be, is extremely valuable when you run into difficult discussions in your organizations where all sorts of perhaps political interests or other, from the patient's point of view, irrelevant interests start mixing things up. Then you can always take out your lightsaber and, pardon my French, cut off the bullshit and hopefully create another Pohjola Hospital. That's my 15 minutes of fame. Thank you.